Omagyantimadandasya Ginangena Shalakaya Chaksunamilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Svapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama. So welcome to Ram Taal. There's a whole history here connected to Subari Muni, one great ascetic who came into some difficulty but revived himself, became a great bhakti yogi. This is where he did his tapasya or his penances for forgiveness. And one society, recognizing the importance of this place, some distance from the village of Vrindavan, they came here and made this park very beautiful. Before it was just like a flat pasture land. There was nothing, and there were some trees here, of course. They did some architectural, they did some digging here, and they found a lot of ancient objects, thousands of years old, verifying the importance of this place. But I like to come here from time to time because it gives us a little insight into what Vrindavan was, even a few hundred years ago, or 500 years ago. Of course, 5,000 years ago we can hardly imagine, but something like this. Vikram, welcome. So yesterday was the appearance day of Lord Ramachandra. And there was no class or no katha about Ram, because of course we were observing the 50th anniversary of the opening of our Krishna Balaram Mandir. That's a very historical moment in the history of Vrindavan, because Prabhupada's also reviving Vrindavan as the Goswamis did, carrying on the same tradition, and established his Krishna Balaram Mandir. So rightfully, most of the celebrations was about that. There was a play last night about Ramayan. It was pretty good. It was nice. But I thought this morning we could have some discussion about Lord Ramachandra. It's required because Lord Ramachandra is one of the more important incarnations of Krishna. Etecham sa kalo pumsha krishnashtu bhagavan swayam. From time to time the Lord incarnates into the world in various forms. Those forms are according to the time, place, and circumstance of history. He appeared as a fish, he appeared as a boar, as a dwarf, half man, half lion, so many incarnations. Not material forms, but spiritual forms, suitable for paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya taduskridam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavam yuge, for delivering his devotees and for annihilating the miscreants, the asuras, and for reestablishing the principles of dharma. He comes again and again and again. You can ask in Russian.
Есть кто-нибудь, кто английский не понимает? Тогда можете вокруг меня сесть, я вам буду переводить.
Vikram will translate to you. So different incarnations are coming. Of course, they're called avatars. Avatar means one who descends from the spiritual world for that purpose. Big group. Vikram, you can translate into Hindi over here. Or Zulu. But Krishna, he's avatari. Avatari means that he's the source of all those incarnations. He's Swayam Bhagavan. He possesses the six full opulences of Godhead. But it's interesting, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, in quotes from the Padma Purana, in his book called Lagu Bhagavatamritam, 1.5.16, Nrsinga Rama Krishneshu Sadguyam Pari Puritam Paravashtas Tutetasya Dipat Utpana Diptvati. He writes, in Lord Nrsinga, Ramchandra, and Krishna, the six transcendental opulences are perfect and complete. Because usually the incarnations only display some of the opulences of Krishna, Bhagavan. But he says Nrsinga, Ram, and Krishna, in them the six transcendental opulences are perfect and complete. They are parivashtas, the more important forms of the Lord. From him, Krishna, they are manifested as lamps are lighted from an original lamp. Now what's interesting is that Jiva Goswami, who was the only disciple of Rupa Goswami, he quotes part of the same verse in one book he wrote called Krishna Shandarbha. He writes, Nrsinga Rama Krishneshu Sadgunya Pari Puranam. The six opulences are what? Wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation are fully present in the forms of Nrsingadev, Rama, and Krishna. Wow. So that's our Lord Ram. Of course, the full glories of Lord Ramachandra are nicely enunciated in what? The Ramayan. In 7 cantos, comprising of 500 chapters and 24,000 verses. With all due respect, the Bible, the Quran, even the Lotus Sutras of Buddhas, they pale in comparison to the wealth of knowledge that we have here in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. Just one incarnation of Krishna, Ram, there's 7 cantos, which means like volumes, 500 chapters and 24,000 verses about Lord Ram. So it would take us many months, maybe many years, to read that great epic. But I thought we could summarize it today. That's allowed because even our Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, the Amala Purana, the most pure scripture about the Lord, there's also a summary of Lord Ram's activities there. Lord is following in the footsteps of our acharyas. So I was reading Ramayan last night. And the Ramayan begins with the sage Valmiki inquiring from Narada Muni. The Ramayan begins with this. There's a great sage, Valmiki. We often tell his story, but we don't have time now. He was inquiring from the great sage Narada Muni as to who is the most virtuous person who possesses all good qualities. We have lots of example of people these days who possess all bad qualities, and they're even in leadership positions. I won't go into details. But sadhus are more interested in virtuous persons, sadhus, rishis, yogis, bhakti yogis. So Valmiki inquired for Narada Muni, who's the most virtuous person who possesses all good qualities? So Narada Muni replies that it's Lord Ramachandra. This is Treta Yuga. So later in chapter 2, we discover that Lord Brahma, the creator of this universe, he requests Valmiki to write about those pastimes, write about Ramchandra. And that book would later be called Ramayan. Brahma requests Valmiki. He says to him, please, you narrate the legend of Ram, the virtuous, intellectual, and intrepid one, just the word intrepid, a godlike person in this world as well as you've heard it from the sage Narada, please. So Valmiki began writing. And the Ramayan was actually revealed to him as he was writing. He wrote in the Anushtup meter. Anushtup meter is much, well, it's the meter of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharma parichaja mamikam saranam vajaham tam sarvapap. There's a number of verses in the Ramayan which are, of course, not in the Ashtup, but generally, because it's easy reading, easy memorizing. It brings Ram Shmaranam, remembrance of Ram. So Lord Ram, he appeared in Treta Yuga, and it's notable because he's called Purushottam. Purushottam means the best amongst male personalities, Purushottam. And he's famous in many ways, but he's famous as the perfect leader, the king. Not only that, he's the perfect husband, he's the perfect brother, he's the perfect son. Bhakti is all about personality, loving relationships. So here's the perfect leader. Here's the perfect husband. Here's the perfect brother. Here's the perfect son. At different points in our lives, we're interested in a perfect leader. We want a perfect husband. We want a perfect brother. We want a perfect son. We want a ray of Vishnu. Like Gorshakti. In other words, as the Supreme Personality of God, he demonstrated, he showed us as human beings what is perfect character. Because without perfect character, you can't be a perfect sadhu. Like if you study our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he was a fully self-realized soul, a resident of Vrindavan. But he was also a perfect gentleman. When I traveled with Prabhupada, I was amazed that he always had proper etiquette in dealing with different members of society. He was always dressed very nicely, spoke very well. He had affectionate dealings with others. Even when he was strong with others to defeat their nonsense philosophy, he'd always end up by giving them some prasadam, some sweet words. A perfect gentleman. So in his role as king, his kingdom, Ram's kingdom, is famous even today. It's called Ram Rajya. Ram Rajya. It means the whole world, all the politicians should study the kingdom of Ram. Because in his kingdom, everyone was happy. There wasn't Democrats and Republicans and independents and dictators and communists. No. In his kingdom, there was just one party. Everybody was happy. Because Lord Ram, he saw after the people's material needs. That's part of the Vedas, actually. Veda means knowledge. So we think of the Vedas in the sense of, books on the science of self-realization. And that's true. But to practice the science of self-realization as a society, we need to know how to live together in harmony and meet our basic needs. Ishvasham idam sarvam yatkinja yagatyam jagat tena taktena bunjita margitaha kashvishvitanam. That everything that moves is owned in this creation, is owned and controlled. Everything that moves in this creation is owned and controlled by the Lord. Therefore, one should take only what is necessary for himself, leaving the rest aside. This is a golden rule in society. God has created this universe as a whole. There's enough facility for every created being, from the tiny, insect up to Lord Rama, to meet their material to meet their material needs and material desires. And it works if you take according to your need, not according to your greed. This is the problem. Human beings, they take according to their greed, unsatisfied sense gratification. But if you see the animals, like Prabhupada said one time, I remember in Geneva, he said, you put a bag of seeds in the forest, the birds will come and take one or two seeds and fly away. A man will come and steal the whole thing and take it home. So if we simply follow this rule, take according to your need, not according to your greed, we would meet everyone would live peacefully. Maybe not extravagantly, but what's another motto? Simple living with high thinking. Nowadays it's complicated life with no time to think, who am I? Where have I come from? What's the purpose of life? Does God exist? We live in a very turbulent materialistic society, upside down, topsy-turvy. So Vedas, they also teach material things, because you have a nice foundation, you can build a nice house. So if you have a foundation where you can live simply and peacefully and focus on the higher purpose of life, that's the best. So that was Ram Rajya. It didn't mean that, you necessarily had to live very simple. Like brahmacharis and sannyasis, they can live simple. Householders need more facilities. They have children. They need a house. They need a bullock cart. I'm not going to say. They need some finances, each according to his need like that. Prabhupada said you should choose that ashram, brahmachari, grihastra, vanapastra, sannyasi. They're all authorized, that you feel comfortable so that you can chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So Ram Rajya, that's Ram Rajya. In essence, all the citizens were happy because their material needs were met and their spiritual needs as well. The government doesn't have to tell someone which religion to follow. There are bona fide religions. Christianity is based on the teachings of Jesus Christ. Islam is based on the teachings of Muhammad. These are saintly persons who came to this world and spoke according to the time, place, circumstance of where they appeared in the world. Buddha as well. And you choose that tradition you feel most comfortable with. Of course, we feel very comfortable singing, dancing, laughing, hearing some katha, taking prasadam. We feel that's a formula for the whole world as well. But the purpose of the leadership is to make sure that people follow their tradition, not abuse it. Many people reject religion. Why? Because it's not properly practiced. But Prabhupada said, the misuse of something doesn't mean the original thing is wrong. The misuse of something doesn't mean the original thing is wrong. So we offer respect to our Christian brothers and sisters, and the Muslims, and the Buddhists, and the Jew, everyone, if they're practicing properly. Just as we expect ourselves to practice Krishna consciousness properly, although sometimes it doesn't happen. We shouldn't lose faith because someone's not practicing properly. So Ram was strict, the different spiritual traditions, but basically there was one tradition that was him. They were all Ram Bhaktas. But we're talking in principle. So he was the perfect king. He was the perfect brother, Bharat and Laksmana. He was the perfect son to his father, Dasharatha. And he was the perfect husband. We all need personalities. We have different relationships in this world. You think about it. We have different relationships. So we'd like those relationships to be ideal. So he showed what was an ideal husband. In that, he gave his wife all protection. Husband is meant to protect the wife. Cows, Brahmins, children, and ladies need protection because they're not as strong as males. Doesn't mean they're inferior. It just means that by nature, the Constitution, because everyone has something to offer society. Society as a whole has different parts and parcels, and they're all required. So sometimes children, cows, Brahmins, and ladies are exploited, unfortunately. And therefore, they're protected. Protected why? So they can be peaceful and do the real business of life, which is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So he protected her. Of course, protection means ultimately what are we asking for? Even we ask the Lord for protection. Padam padam yat vipadam natesham. Bhagavatam says in this world there's danger at every step. You never know. We're always surprised. We read the newspaper, we go online. What happened here or there? Oh, wow. Prabhupada said one time, don't be surprised when something goes wrong. Be surprised when something goes right in this world. Don't be surprised when something's going wrong. No, be surprised things are going okay. So real protection, those things will come and go, but real protection means to be protected from illusion. The greatest calamity, apart from disease, old age and death, and birth, the greatest calamity is to forget God. Whatever nomenclature you call him. To forget him is the greatest catastrophe, because if you forget God, you're guaranteed, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for one who has taken birth, death is certain. And for someone who's not self-realized, who's not spiritual, death, he says, birth, and then birth is certain. For one who has taken birth, death is certain, and for one who dies, birth is certain. So this is, if you forget Krishna, then you have to take birth again. You want to go through it all over again? 9 months in the womb, coming out, childhood measles and chicken pox and mumps and mosquito bites and learning to walk, learning to talk, going to school, getting bullied, becoming a teenager and your senses suddenly awaken. Whoa. You become involved in so many illicit activities that are actually sanctioned by modern society. Meat eating, intoxication, promiscuous sex, gambling. People think, yes, this is our birthright. But these things affect us and make the process of spiritual life more difficult. They affect the body, the mind, the intellect, and ultimately the soul. So one has to come to the point of understanding that and control the senses. And when the senses are controlled, your mind can be peaceful to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. But how to do that? Because those forces, those urges are so strong. How do you control them? Param drishta nivartante, by getting a higher taste. Yes, there's a science, Krishna consciousness. It's a science. Param drishta nivartante. Chanaka Pandit says you can only give up something. You may be very attached to it. You may even think it's right. You can only give it up if you get something better. So all these things I mentioned, how people think we're crazy. You Hare Krishnas, give it meat, intoxication, illicit sex. How do you do it? Very easy. We get the higher taste. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Therefore we have to chant every day 16 rounds. That's the minimum. That's the kavacha. Every devotees like to wear kavachas. How many devotees are wearing the Shringa kavachas? So many. That's true. But the real kavacha is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. And you learn that as you're a devotee. You experience so many instances where Krishna protects you. Who would not take up this process of chanting Hare Krishna? So this is the real protection that we can offer our dependents. No one should become a demigod, a guru, a teacher, or a parent unless they can protect their dependents from the illusion of material existence and inspire them in Krishna consciousness. Don't become a devata from the higher planets. Don't take up the role of a guru. Don't become a parent. Don't become a husband is pati guru. He's also a guru for his wife. And a teacher unless in that role where people are dependent upon you. You can inspire them in Krishna consciousness. And the same for the wife. Don't become a wife. Wife is also authority. She's the authority. The house is her domain. When the husband comes home, he doesn't say anything about where to put this or that, or the children. Sometimes ladies have big positions in society. It's all okay if one knows the science of Krishna consciousness. We make no distinction. So he gave his wife all protection. Therefore he's famous. As Lord Ram is an expansion of Krishna, his wife Sita is an expansion of who? Vrindavan Eshwari Shrimati Radharani Ki. Technically, an expansion of Lakshmi Devi, who's an expansion of Radharani. And to get to the wick, Sita was kidnapped. There's a whole story. Of course, there's 24,000 verses, so the sun's going to get high pretty soon. So we'll get to the nectar here. Sita was kidnapped by the evil-minded Ravena. The goddess of fortune was kidnapped by an asura. And Lord Ram did everything in his power to rescue her. It's the central theme. Because it's all about rasa. The central theme, it's all about love. It's the original love story. It's the central theme wherein both Ram and Sita essentially cry for each other in separation. Ram cried when Sita left, and Sita cried because she was separated from Ram. A lot of crying going on. Like one time, a newspaper reporter came to Bhubaneswara, and Gaur-Govinda Maharaj, Srila Gaur-Govinda Maharaj, he was establishing Krishna consciousness in that city. He built that beautiful temple for people to come to. Very deep devotee, rasic devotee. And the newspaper reporter came and said, "So, Swamiji," he's like a new guy on a new reporter, like 18-year-old, just graduated from university. "So, Swamiji, can you tell me what is the essence of this Hare Krishna movement?" So I would have said something like, well, human life is meant for self-realization, and this age, the means of self-realization is to chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead. That's what I would have said. But Gaur-Govinda Maharaj is like on another planet. He said, what is the essence of this movement? Crying, crying, crying. So the newspaper reporter said, should I write that? He said, yes, everyone should know. But how will people join your movement? That is their business. Because either you cry in material life or you cry in spiritual life. But it's a whole different thing. Ordinary people see that as a sign that Sita and Ram are mere mortals. How could he be God if he's crying? How could she be the goddess of fortune if she's crying, lamentation? But the fact is that Ram and Sita are transcendental to this world, and they're exhibiting crying and lamentation on the spiritual platform, Vipralamba Bhav. Spiritual ecstasy and separation. Separation makes the heart grow fonder. So that theme is also there in the spiritual world. This world's just a reflection of that world, perverted reflection. But all these emotions also exist. So sometimes Krishna leaves Vrindavan, so the inhabitants are missing him, and in missing him, their affection for him increases. That's also a theme in the Ramayan. Most of the Ramayan, Sita's in Lanka, and Ram's always crying. Actually, there's a nice pastime to illustrate how they were experiencing spiritual ecstasy in separation. I'll share it with you. One time Parvati, who's Parvati? Parvati's the wife of Lord Shiva. So she saw her husband chanting japa. Shiva, He's chanting japa. What was he chanting? She said, Pati. His wife addresses the husband as Pati. Whose name are you chanting? So Shiva said, oh, I am chanting the name of Lord Ramachandra. Jai Sri Ram! Jai Hanuman! Death to Ravena! I made that up. What name? And Shiva said, I'm chanting the name of Ram. So Parvati said, oh, interesting. Well, where is he? So Shiva said, actually, right now, he's in the Dandakaranya forest on the planet Earth. Ram's in the Dandakaranya forest on the planet Earth. So Parvati said, may I have your permission to go and see him? Because you're chanting his name. I want to meet this Ram. Can I go? So Shiva said, yes, go. So Parvati, she came down from the heavenly planets and she went to the Dandakaranya forest where the whole Ramayan was taking place, because it takes place over and over and over. All of Krishna's pastimes. They're going on continuously, like a reel. But you never get tired of them because they're transcendental. So she was wandering around the forest looking for Ram. Suddenly she heard someone crying. Someone was crying, Sita! Oh, Sita, my love! My darling Sita! My beloved wife! Where have you gone? Because Ravana had kidnapped her. This was Ram. And she realized that Ram was the one who was crying. His crying was actually Vipralamba Bhav, intense feelings of spiritual separation, but she thought, oh, just see. He's lamenting like a mortal. What's so special about him? Why is my husband chanting the name Ram? This person's just lamenting, crying. So she went back to Kailash and she said to her husband, Pati, I saw this Ram, but he's just crying like a mortal, Prabhu. So Shiva said, no, Devi, you don't understand. He's crying and lamenting. These are transcendental symptoms of love. Go back and look again and try to understand. So Parvati went back to the Dandakaranya forest, and this time, to get closer, actually to test him, she assumed the form of Sita. Parvati, make a good movie. She assumed the form of Sita, and she came near Ram, and when Ram passed by her, he didn't even notice her. He looked at her and there was nothing. Why? Because Rama's only attached to the true form of Sita, and he can't be fooled. He's transcendental. He's the Supreme Personality of God. You can't fool him. He's not a mere mortal. So Parvati went back to her husband, Lord Shiva, and she said, Pati, now we understand that Ram's not a mortal being. He's completely transcendental because he wasn't attracted to the false form of Sita. He's only attracted to the real form of Sita. Therefore, he's a transcendental personality. Even I, the wife of you, Lord Shiva, who possesses all mystic powers, couldn't fool him. When I saw him crying, I understood his crying was a manifestation of deep separation from his real wife, Sita, the goddess of fortune. So Shiva said, very nice. You have understood. So Shiva said, it was very nice you went there, Mata, Maya. So Parvati was shocked. She said, I'm not Mata. I'm not your mother. I'm Devi. I'm your wife. Why are you calling me Mata? So Shiva said, no, from now on I'm going to call you Mata because you stood in front of my Lord as his wife. You assumed the form of Sita. So because you stood in front of the Lord as my wife, or as his wife, now you're Mata. So Parvati became very disturbed. Don't call me Mata. No, but you see, you stood in front of Ram as his wife. So now you're my Mata. So this is one reason the acharyas say that she committed sati. She later on gave up her form and entered into the fire. So because the relationship between Parvati and Shiva is also transcendental and eternal, She took birth as the daughter of the Himalayas, as Himavati, and eventually was reunited with her beloved Shiva. She entered into the fire. It's kind of a heavy story, but she came out later as Himavati. Actually, we haven't given that name yet, Himavati. Write that down. Himavati. The point is, these pastimes of Rama are not something mundane. They're completely on the transcendental platform. So again, Sita was kidnapped in the forest by Ravena. And that story remains popular even today because it's transcendental. And this character, Ravana, he was on the level, or he is on the level of Hiranyakashipu and Kamsa. What does his name mean? Ravana. In Sanskrit it means, he who makes the universe scream in pain. We'll never give that name. We can give the name Himavati Dasi, but we can't give someone the name Ravana. Ravana, what is it? Hunta means to kill, so I had a godbrother named Kamsa Hunta. He said, when I got my name from Prabhupada, my jaw dropped. Prabhupada said, this means the killer of Kamsa. Kamsa Hunta. So we always say, Kamsa, come here. Kamsa. He like, no! So Ravana Hamsa. Any boys want that name? He who makes the universe scream in pain. So he committed many atrocities, too many to mention, but his biggest folly was to kidnap Sita, the goddess of fortune. He wanted to enjoy her, but he wasn't able to. Not simply because she refused to surrender to him. She said famously, don't touch me! I'm the wife of Lord Rama. But Ravana couldn't touch her because he was cursed by a powerful sage. This is kind of confidential. This is not deep, confidential like Radha and Krishna's pastime, but it's interesting. He was cursed as a young man. As a young man, he violated a young girl. He actually raped a young girl who was the daughter of a great sage. And this sage was so furious at this boy, he said to Ravana, should you ever force a woman to enjoy sensual pleasures with you, immediately your head will explode into 1,000,000 pieces. That was the curse. So he kidnapped her, but he couldn't force her to enjoy him because the sage had said, if you try to enjoy a woman according to without her consent, 1,000,000 pieces is quite a lot. I mean, your brain would be little pieces like. Prabhupada comments that in the same way people in general are cursed because they're trying to enjoy Lakshmi in the material world without the blessings of Narayan. Prabhupada said one time, people want to enjoy the kingdom of God without God. You can enjoy this world. You can enjoy utilizing it in the service of Krishna. It's all his. You can't call anything yours. Krishna created, he's maintaining it. It'll be destroyed, it'll be created again, he'll maintain it, destroy it. It's all his. So you can use things in his service. You can use Lakshmi in his service, and Narayan will bless you. You're a grihastra making lots of money, giving it to the Polish summer tour. I bless you. So Ram was eventually able to get Sita back from Lanka, from the Ashok forest. But he didn't do it alone. He gave his one of his servants the privilege of helping him do that. Just like one time, we said many times, Prabhupada was walking on the beach in Juhu, and one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, why didn't Lord Chaitanya, he spread Krishna consciousness all over India. He went to South India, he was in Bengal, he was in Vrindavan. Why didn't he spread the Sankirtan movement all over the world? He's God. So Prabhupada stopped and he put his cane into the sand and he looked like this. He said, because he wanted me to do it. Because the servant likes to get service from the master. If you have a master, you want to, the relationship is, if it's a friendly, loving relationship, please give me some service. So you could say Prabhupada was Krishna's chosen son. When you have a very important service to do, you give it to someone you have great confidence in. So Prabhupada had that, given that confidential role of spreading the Sankirtan movement all over the world. So who helped Ram? Hanuman. He was a monkey, but not ordinary monkey. It's Varana race. They're like superior even to human beings, the Varana race. He looks like a monkey, but superior race. Very devoted servant of Ram. He was in dasyaras, means servant mode. We discussed many times, devotees aspire in a relationship with the Lord as a servant, as a friend. Krishna, let's just be friends. Sometimes you say, boy and a girl say, it's over, let's just be friends. Because it's a nice relationship, friends, right? And you can have a parental relationship, Krishna Madhurya. But Hanuman exemplifies dasya, servitorship. We may think, yes, but I want to be a gopi, I want to be a gopa. But through Hanuman, we can appreciate how the dasya rasa is also fully satisfying. We talked about trees the other day in class. Prananda Saraswati said, I want to be a tree in Vrindavan. What? Yeah, well, they're called paviksha trees. They're personalities. They have a relationship of neutrality, but they get to touch Krishna, offer their fruits and flowers to Krishna. Sometimes Krishna comes and embraces a kadamba tree. Sometimes Radharani embraces a tamal tree. It's really cool to be a tree in Vrindavan. So dasyaras can be fully set. To be the servant of a glorious master, that's our topmost position. To be a servant of Srila Prabhupada. What more do we want? Because Prabhupada will one day introduce us to Krishna. We want to be servants. We want to be servants of the servants of the servants, because then you get all the dust of all those lotus feet on your head. So Hanuman, I'm getting very emotional here. Hanuman first met Ram in the Dandakaranya forest. Ram had been banished to the forest for 14 years with Laksmana and Sita. And one time they entered into the kingdom of Sugriva. He was also the Varna race. And Sugriva was informed that these three personalities, who they didn't know who they were, actually there were Sita, Ram, and Lakshman. These three personalities, being informed of their entering into the forest, Sugriva sent Hanuman, who was a trusted minister, to find out who these persons were. Who's wandering in our forest? Who are these human-like people? So Hanuman, he disguised himself as a mendicant. Like Ravena disguised himself as a sadhu. Disguise. So Hanuman disguised himself as a mendicant, and he came before Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. And he was just overwhelmed by their transcendental beauty. He couldn't control himself. Appreciating the transcendental qualities of this trio, he began offering words of praise. It's described streams of elegant praise. This is poetry. He's glorifying Ram, Sita, and Lakshman with streams of elegant praise. He's a Varna, he's not a monkey, he's an elevated race. And unable to control himself, he gave up his disguise and said, Ram, I am yours. We want to come to that point, right? Krishna, I am yours! That's Atmanivedanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandham, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. He said, I am yours. His words, the way he glorified Sita, Ram, and Lakshman touched Ram's heart. And Ram turned to Lakshman. He said something that, for me, it's just causes my heart to beat. I have to take my blood pressure medicine. It's so wonderful. Ram said to Lakshman, the charm of Hanuman's voice is amazing. He used the right words at the right time. He is pleasing, gentle, and has gravity of speech. The contents of his speech are attractive to the heart. He knows the Rig, Yajur, and Samvedas very well. He cannot be so gentle if he has not studied the Shastras. Lakshman, he must have learned from his teachers very well. He spoke much, but he did not use even a single wrong word. While speaking, there was no fault in his body. He was focused. His speech can win over an enemy who has a raised sword. What? Someone's coming to you with a raised sword. His speech can win over an enemy who has a raised sword. If I get such a person as an associate, I can achieve success. Shri Hanuman Jai K. Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman K. Shri Ramayan K. When I read that, I think that's what I want to be. I want to be like that. After all was said and done, after the battle was over and the Rakshasas had all been killed, and Hanuman had come and his tail was on fire, Ram was so indebted to him for his service. When you love someone, you want to serve someone, and that person becomes indebted to you because of the service. That's what we want to serve, Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava, because they become indebted and we get their kripa. Our sadhana is one thing. We really make advancement by mercy, by blessings. That's how we make advancement. So Ram said to Hanuman, Hanuman, what can I give you in reciprocation? Hanuman said, Dasharatha, Lord, give me a hug. Give me a hug. So there's that famous picture of Ram hugging Hanuman. Nadanam najana no sundarim kavicham vada kadisha kamaye mama janmani janva yishabhava. Lord, I have no desire for material wealth, for fame. I'm not attracted to beautiful men and women. All I want is your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. That's the prayer of the devotee. When Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was Ganesham, I remember, in the 70s. He just graduated from Yale University. Very tall, handsome person, African body. He went to the Eastern Europe when it was full-on communist. I came with the last year of communism, but he was there in the depths of the evil empire. And he was sneaking books in a briefcase and under his shirt, and so many daring things he did. And even they had a library party, visiting the universities in Czech and Slovak and all these places. So one time he came to Srila Prabhupada and he walked in the room, and Prabhupada heard of his exploits. Hearing the exploits, he said, Ganesham, come here. And all the sannyasis, he was Brahmachari, all the big sannyasis, they're done this there. He comes and Prabhupada come and he said, let me give you a hug. Sorry. So those are the qualities of a servant which we can develop, and then one day we consider our master, Srila Prabhupada, one day maybe he'll hug us. One time we were in I probably shouldn't say this, but we were in Fontenay-aux-Roses. I was 19 years old. And Prabhupada has sent me and another devotee to Europe to help start some temples. So we had a new temple just outside of Paris in Fontenay-aux-Roses. And Prabhupada came. It was a small house. And we gave one room to Prabhupada. And the rest of us, we slept, under tables and in little corners and things. And then Prabhupada would come down every morning to give class. So he would come down with his slippers on. So there was one devotee, Bugarba, he's my godbrother. He came up with this great idea that he would sit by the entrance to the temple room, and Prabhupada would come, and he would take Prabhupada's slippers off and keep them. And then when Prabhupada came out after giving class, he'd wait there and he'd put Prabhupada's slippers on. So I said, beg, borrow, or steal, to get the mercy of the holy name. Isn't it? There's that saying, beg, borrow, or steal to get the mercy. We used to steal the Mahaprasadam in the old days. We know how to get in the kitchen, unlock the refrigerator, and no one ever knew I was doing it. To this day, I'm saying. Now, Kanti, Sitala, you know where all those sweets went. Mondikini. So, one day, I got to that place first, to the door, and Bhagarba was late. So Prabhupada came down, and I could see Bhagarba from a distance. He was running. I went. And Prabhupada came, and then he stood there, like that's what happened, right? And I took his slippers off his feet, and I made sure that my fingers touched his lotus feet, because the dust of the feet of a pure devotee, the water that has washed his feet, and the remnants of his plate, those things are, if you take that, you can make big quantum leap in spiritual life. So and then I took him and I hid them under my chadar. I went to class, and Bhagarva's like, he's looking at me like, fire from his eyes. So then it was time for Prabhupada to come out. So then I went and sat there, and then Prabhupada came, and I was putting on his shoes very carefully, and he rubbed my head. He said, "Good boy." Hare Krishna. That's all I needed to ever hear. Yeah, just spiritual master says, "Good boy." You can give me $1 million, a place in Svargaloka. I wouldn't change that for those words of Prabhupada. Good boy. I hope to become a good boy. So many chapters later in the Ramayan, Hanuman is entrusted to find Sita, who's been kidnapped by Ravena. And bounding over the ocean in one leap, he arrived in Lanka. And after much searching, he eventually found Sita in a garden of Ashok trees. And then he, kind of summarizing here, he jumped back over the ocean and went to where Ram was, and with the good news that he'd found Sita. Because no one knew. It was a secret mission. And no one knew what was happening. Ram and Laksmana were just like themselves, like, where? Maybe Hanuman, has Hanuman been successful? So he came with the good news, he'd found Sita. So approaching Ram, he said, "Found Sita I." When I first read that, I thought it's a typo. Somebody typed something wrong. "Found Sita I." But in fact, Hanuman had chosen his words very carefully, because the Acharyas comment. For if he had said, "I found Sita," the first word that Ram would have heard is "I." But it doesn't denote if Sita was found or not. I. Ram just wants to know if Sita's been found. So it might have been followed by did not find Sita. I did not find Sita. So in such a case, the Acharyas say Ram may have temporarily been plunged into grief. I what? Did you find her? Maybe not. Ooh. And if Hanuman had said, Sita, I found, the first word that Ram would have heard was Sita, without knowing if she'd been found or not. Sita, what? So he's servant. He knows the desires of the master. This is the good servant. By associating with the Spirit, he knows what the spiritual master, just like we know what Prabhupada wants. Distribute books, distribute books, distribute books. If you've got time, chant Hare Krishna. So many instructions we know, and if we follow those instructions, we know we're pleasing Srila Prabhupada. This is the good. You have to study Srila Prabhupada to know. Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, read my books. And if you read the books, you know that Prabhupada had that missionary spirit. He wanted actually that we assist him in our different ways in spreading the Sankirtan movement. He also wanted us to become pure devotees to the Lord, Brajbasis. Because he built that temple, and he wrote in the Bhagavatam that he's inviting everyone to come to Krishna Balarama Mandir and become Brajbasis. So two things, like Narottam Das Thakur, he's a Rasik Bhakta and he was a big preacher. So each to his own in our own ways. Krishna says he's the ability. We know Prabhupada like that. We don't know Prabhupada. One time Prabhupada said to a devotee, if I told you who I am in the spiritual world, you'd simply faint. He said that to one of my godbrothers. And then one time he was sick, and when you're sick, you become pale. And then Prabhupada, one day Prabhupada was sick for like 14 days, and the servant came in, and Prabhupada was getting over the sickness. So Prabhupada said, I'm getting better. You see this reddish gold color? The servant said, yes. Prabhupada said, this is, my cup runneth over with love. Sometimes something just comes out. He said, yes, this is my color in the spiritual world. So when that devotee, who was a servant of Prabhupada, told me that story, I went to Nectar Devotion. I went through all the different personalities to see, who had that reddish. A few did, so I couldn't come to it. But we're not meant to speculate on who our spiritual master is in the spiritual world. That will be revealed at a proper time. So Hanuman said, found Sita I. Ram was in ecstasy. So then Ram went and with the monkeys he had monkeys and bears. That was his army. Monkeys and bears, Ram. Lord is so kind. He loves all his sons and daughters, and he engages all of them accordingly. So he conquered Lanka with monkeys and bears. And I've told you before, one time Prabhupada was sitting, and he said that all the disciples there, and, we are disciples, Srila Prabhupada, in early days. And Prabhupada said, just as Lord Ram conquered Lanka with monkeys and bears, I'm conquering the world with my disciples. Everybody went, whoa. Trinata peace in each anata. We have to become humble. So after Sita had been rescued and all the demons, including Ravana, death to Ravana! Death to Ravana! Lord Ram assembled all the monkey warriors and the bear warriors, and he glorified them. It's actually there in the annals of Shastra. There was an Istagosti. Like on the Polish tour, we have an Istagosti. Before the tour, all right, we're spiritual warriors. We're going to spread the holy name all over the Baltic coast. And then afterwards, we have a thank you. We we mention each devotee, the cook, even the ladies who clean the school for us. We glorify them. we get a Mercedes van and we bring them to the last festival. We dress them in saris and make them, and then, they're so pleased. Everyone did some service, We have to honor that. So Lord Ramachandra had this big istagosti. Every monkey he glorified. Every bear he glorified. Every warrior, he presented them gifts. And then he didn't mention Hanuman. Hanuman, he saved the best for last. He said, Hanuman, come. It's be a great movie. Bhakti. So Hanuman came. He turned to Hanuman, he said the following words. May my supreme affection for you continue forever. Let my love not be diverted to anyone else. This is like a devotee talking to the Lord. But love is reciprocal. May my supreme affection, he's talking to Hanuman, may my supreme affection for you continue forever. Let my love not be diverted to anyone else. May life continue in my body only so long as your story is spoken and heard on the surface of the earth. That's what I'm talking to his devotee. May my supreme affection for you continue forever. May my love not be diverted to anyone else. May life continue in my body only so long as your story is spoken and heard on the surface. If you want love, join this movement, because there's no real love out there. There's love, it's a reflection of love. But the reflection of the moon in the lake is not like, it's beautiful, but it's not like the effulgence of the moon. So love is the highest happiness, and that love is relationships, and that's bhakti. We love Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava. Those loving relationships, santushti, they give full satisfaction, even to an aspiring devotee. As soon as you pick up those beads, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. As soon as you come to the Rishikesh Kirtan Fest, isn't it, Tina?
Yes.
And you join that, you don't know what it is, but it's love. It's loving reciprocation. And you come there and you go, wow. Many of those people who came, they said, I came to Rishikesh, I didn't know what I was looking for. Now I found it. It's baby love, but a baby's love for the mother's real love. It may not be, like loving your wife later on or whatever, your husband, but it's baby love, but it's love. You see the baby in the arms of the mother. I've seen devotee babies, they're smiling like this. Hare Krishna, joy. It's love. Like the green mango and the ripe mango. The ripe mango's very popular, but green mango you can make chutney, achar. And I love the achar, but they keep forgetting to give it to me. Achar, green mango. So green bhakti, beginning bhakti, her bhakti. Why are they sitting here? Because they've experienced true love. They always say in the world, not puppy love, but true love. There's something there. They know they're hanging. This is loyum. This is greed, and that greed will take them from stage to stage. And one day, Krishna will embrace them in the spiritual world. That's what we're looking for. So Ram embraced Hanuman. He declared, I remain forever indebted to Hanuman. And Hanuman replied. Would you like to hear what Hanuman said at that moment? He said, thank you. Krishna, I'm yours, thank you. Real friends, I was reading recently, real friends, they don't have to talk a lot. They can walk together for a long distance without saying anything to each other. That's a real friend, When you make friends, you have to establish a relationship. and you're up all night talking. But a real friend, a friend in need is a friend indeed. You can just walk with that person all day and you don't have to say anything. Eloquence is truth spoken concisely. Just a few words. Love you too. Hare Krishna, Jago. So Hanuman's a good example. In fact, I found two verses in the Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 19, verses 7 and 8. One cannot establish a friendship with the Supreme Lord Ramachandra on the basis of material qualities, such as one's birth in an aristocratic family, one's personal beauty, one's elegance, one's sharp intelligence, or one's superior race or nation. None of these qualifications is actually a prerequisite for friendship with Ram. Otherwise, how is it possible that although we uncivilized inhabitants of the forest have not taken noble births, although we have no physical beauty, and although we cannot speak like gentlemen, Ram has nevertheless accepted us as his friends? It's the monkeys and bears speaking. Therefore, whether one is a demigod or a demon, a man or a creature other than a man, such as a beast or bird, everyone should worship Ram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears on this earth just like a human being. There is no need of great austerities or penances to worship the Lord, for he accepts even a small service offered by his devotee. Thus he's satisfied, and as soon as he's satisfied, the devotee is successful. Indeed, Lord Sri Ram brought all the devotees of Ayodhya back home, back to Godhead. Why? Took all the monkeys and bears. So in this way we can see how nice it is to be the servant. One time Prabhupada was walking on the beach in Mumbai, and there was, you know how now in India the people are buying Western dogs like poodles and German shepherds and dachshunds and all kinds of things. So there was a man on the beach. He had a big white dog, fluffy dog, like a Saint Bernard or something, big dog. And he had him on a leash, and the dog was, all happy and shaking. And then Prabhupada said, you see, and the devotee said, you see that dog? Yeah. Prabhupada said, you see those dogs? And they were, the Indian dogs, they all look the same. They were rummaging and fighting and snarling over some garbage, 6 or 7 of them. So Prabhupada said, what's the difference between that dog, the big fluffy white dog, and that dog? And nobody knew what to say. So Prabhupada closed his eyes. He said, that dog is happy because he has a master. Hare Krishna. So all these pastimes are so wonderful that even Lord Krishna, during his pastimes 5,000 years ago, they would reenact Ramayan. And Lord Chaitanya, 500 years ago, he would reenact with his devotees Ramayan. So one more quick pastime. Braj pastime. Shri Brajabhumi Sri Vrindavan Dham Ke. One summer day, here in Vrindavan, Krishna, accompanied by Srimati Radharani and her friends, they sat on the bank of a lake. There's many lakes. Kundas, like we have Sri Kunda. Kundas. And they were watching the monkeys jump from trees into the water. There's a lake here, you can see if you sit there. It's a beautiful lake. The monkeys jump into the water. And occasionally a monkey would come and offer obeisances to Krishna and then return to his friends with all their mischief. Wouldn't that be cute? Krishna's there and a monkey comes. So seeing this, Lalita Devi, she spoke to Vishaka in a way to provoke Krishna. She said, these monkeys' friendship with Krishna reminds me of Lord Ramachandra's friendship with the Varanas, who built a bridge of stones across the ocean to save Sita from Ravana's clutches. So she's glorifying Ram. So Krishna spoke up at once. He said, Lalita, actually your words are divinely inspired. For I am Raghunath, the son of Maharaj Dashrath, now born in the home of King Nanda. What? Your words are divinely inspired. I am Raghunath, the son of Maharaj. I'm Ram. But now I'm born in the home of Nanda Maharaj. So hearing this, all the young girls started laughing. They're holding this. Whoa! They're rolling on the ground. You, Krishna? You're Ram? But Lalita, she said, Krishna, at least I believe you're the leader of the monkeys because you feed them all the butter. But if you want us to believe, you are the jewel of the solar dynasty. Jai Sri Ram. The jewel of the solar poetry. What is the use of a bowman's arrow unless it pierces the heart of his enemy? What is the use of a poet's words unless they pierce the heart of a devotee? You are the jewel of the solar dynasty. If you say that, then you have to float a bridge of stones here. You're just Lala. You're just the son of Mother Yasoda. You're a thief. You steal this and you stop us gopis on the road and make us pay taxes. And meanwhile, speaking like that, her love is increasing for Krishna. So Krishna expanded his chest and accepted Lalita's challenge. He said, monkeys, monkeys, come. They weren't coming. So he took his flute, and with his flute song, he inspired them to bring stones to his feet. So all the monkeys, they started collecting stones here, and they brought them to where Krishna was. And as the monkeys brought stone after stone, Krishna touched each one with his hand. And what did the monkeys do? They threw those stones into the lake, and they floated, and they came together to make a bridge to the other side. And the monkeys, overjoyed by their achievement, ran back and forth across the bridge, leaping up and down, Jai Sri Ram, Jai Sri Ram, Jai Sri Ram, and jumping into the water. So satisfied with himself, Krishna, he said to Lalita, do you believe me now? And Lalita was impressed. And the gopis were impressed. Sometimes they see this opulence of Krishna, and they're impressed. But then Purnamasi, Yogamaya, she takes that away, and they just see Krishna as the most handsome, lovable boy. Because if you see him with opulence, it's sir, sir, sir. But if you see him as the most lovable boy in Vrindavan, it's different. You love him, spiritual, transcendental love. So for a moment, they saw the opulence and impressed all the gopis. Started singing and dancing. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, Patita Pavana Sita Ram, Sita Ram Jai Sita Ram. I have a cold. Sita Ram Jai Sita. And accepting this rare applause from the gopis, because the gopis, he's the rascal Krishna. Pinching them, meeting him at night, calling them with his flute at night, then telling them to go home. Accepting that rare applause from the gopis, Krishna and the leader of his band of monkeys bowed to the gopis. Krishna bowed to the gopis. So then the gopis, they left to collect flowers. It's described for Victor's garland, the Victor garland for Krishna. And Krishna took Radha's hand, and the divine couple walked across the stone bridge to Lanka's shore, and onto Ashokavan, it's described. And the acharyas say, there, in Ashokavan, in the mood of the Ramayan, Krishna held blissful Radharani captives. Krishna held blissful Radharani captives. Shri Ramayan ki, Shri Babu Bada ki, Shri Brajbhumi Sri Vrindavan Dhama ki, Sitaram Laksmana Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Radhashama Sundar ki, Jai Go Premanande, Jai Jai Sri Radhe.